Oh. Let's see how this works. What a crap show. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Whoops. Look at that. It worked. Look at that. It worked. Oh no. I gotta change that. Ooh. King chord. How the hell does this work? Oh, look at that. Interesting. How do I do it? That out. Hey, Ghost. Yay, it worked. Okay. I bet a lot of stuff is going to be dysfunctional because it was all connected to that account. I didn't really think about it. I didn't really realize. Like the ping cord thing on Discord that sends out the notification. Didn't think about that. So I fixed that. YouTube sucks. Seriously? Ruth Floof. I'm interested to see whether this works or not. Totally fresh. See how that goes. I'm glad they started letting you go live like right off the bat. Because Ghost mentioned earlier, and it's totally true. I used to be like 1,000 subscribers or something. I think it only applies to making money now. Of course, they're always going to take that away anyways. Prime example. Bunch of assholes. All right. All right, well, we'll see. We'll see, man. 6 is short, and Kat is out bringing home yet another snake after she already bought one home this week. Except I'll take some blame. This one was kind of my fault. I encouraged it. So she's bringing home a rainbow boa constrictor this time. She brought home a big ball python last week, I guess. She got bit a little bit. All my fault. I mean, it kind of is. I regretted it after the fact, but I'm sure it'll be good. I'm sure it'll be a good thing. But anyways, this is short. 6 is short. I kind of wanted to go into 7, or I'm sorry, 5. 4 and 5. 5 is short. 6 is also kind of short, but it opens the door to a lot of stuff that I don't know if we're going to have time for tonight. But we will see. Give me 1 second. All right. What a pain in the ass. What a total pain in the ass. All right, Adam's descendants to Noah, chapter 5 in Genesis. This is the book of the generations of Adam. The Hebrew word used for generations. It is obviously just family history. It's all of the family history, except for not all of it. Like we talked about 2 weeks ago, I guess, or whatever it was at this point. A lot of things were left out. A lot of things were left to be unclear. There were a lot of open-ended things. There are a lot of open-ended things in Genesis, but you start to now get some genealogical info, just not complete. You can start to kind of try to piece things together. This is also where we get, I believe it's the first indication, if not the second, that people live like a super long time comparatively to now. And there are a lot of theories about that. Obviously, like the fall is one of the theories, which to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense because this is post-fall already. And then people talk about health and food being poison and whatever. And regardless of what you think about that, we get an indication that people lived like 10x, 11x the amount of time back then when compared to now. Pastora, what's going on? So when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. This is also one of the first, but not the first, where we get kind of the image of God thing. This concept that people are some kind of reflection, in a sense, of the creator. Male and female, he created them. That is a reiteration from earlier in Genesis. And he blessed them and named them man when they were created. Reiteration. When Adam had lived 130 years, which is already like a long time, but not really when you get to reading the rest. Adam had lived 130 years. He fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. Now, after Cain and Abel, the Cain and Abel debacle, and the push of Cain out, because Cain was a sarcastic, lying ass to God, he gets pushed out. God then gives Adam and Eve like a new kid that hopefully is better than the last. That new kid that is hopefully better than the last is Seth. The days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years. So there you go. 800 years. And he had other sons and daughters. This on top of 2 weeks ago or whenever it was that we did chapter 4 is why people get the theory, I suppose you could call it, that everybody is a descendant of Adam and Eve. It's just the thing that nobody wants to talk about for obvious reasons. But you have the camp of people that believe there were other people on Earth created that were just not a part of the story. And so they had kids, they had descendants in a different land and started civilization and blah, blah, blah. And then the other camp of people is that Adam and Eve were it. And everything that came from Adam and Eve is everything we see today. I don't really have an opinion because I don't think it really matters a whole lot. But a lot of people disagree. A lot of people think it matters a whole lot, and so they have very harsh opinions. So I'll leave that to you. But those are the two general camps of people. Seth lived after he fathered Enosh 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Seth were 912 years, and then he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he fathered Kenan. Enosh lived after he fathered Kenan 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he fathered Mehalel. Kenan lived after he fathered Mehalel 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Kenan were 910 years. This goes on a bit. This is when you get sort of a genealogy, kind of. NPCs living the land of Nod. That's really funny because I had that conversation once with somebody. It was like, maybe there were what people today call NPCs back then. Maybe God put some people out that like weren't really people, but they were able to do people type things. Like they had code behind them that allowed them to perform functions, but they didn't have like the spiritual aspect or the soul aspect. So it's funny you said that because I've had a genuine conversation with somebody about that. And it's an interesting theory. I think it's a possible theory. I don't think it's something that should just be ruled out. Actually, if Noah and Fam were the last living humans, we came from him. Right. Which is where it goes, right? And then you get the people who take Ruth's point. And what, if we have time, we'll go into 7 because then you get the Nephilim. But then there are those people that are like, well, all the people got wiped out. So really, nobody is related to Adam and Eve. But I guess they are, right? Because Adam and Eve, if you're on that track, Adam and Eve were the first of the first. Everybody else came from them, including Noah and Fam. So sure, Adam and Eve are then gone, but Noah and Fam are already descendants to those people of Adam and Eve. So it's still just a continuation of the lineage, right? But yeah, it's a good point, is that all the people were wiped out. So really it kind of restarted. And more DNA is from Noah and Fam than specifically from Adam and Eve. It's a good point. But then you get the people who are like, okay, well, that may be true, but then the demons came and started having sex with all the ladies. So really, maybe we're all part demonic, or we're all part spirit world, or whatever. You hear it all. You hear it all. There are definitely those people too. And they say that's why some people are just inherently evil, is because they're descendants of the crossbreeding of the spiritual world and the created world. It's good stuff. It's interesting stuff, right? But anyways, this all just continues on. I don't really feel the need to read it. You can read it. It's just names, years, and then somebody died. It just says it over and over again. Thus, all the days of Jared were 962 years, and then he died. It just goes over and over. So if you care for whatever reason, then go back and read it. 21. 22. Actually, yeah, 21. When Enoch had lived 65 years, a lot of argument about what Enoch this is. You can get to your own place about it. He fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God. This is where it starts to get at least somewhat important. Enoch walked with God occurs several times, depending on translation. The theory, or a theory, is that it's to portray, in a sense, that Enoch, albeit his life short, he was not judged negatively by God. That is what the general consensus would be. Otherwise, why is that in there? What's the relevance? Why is it there? Enoch walked with God after he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Why is he special? Why did he walk with God? The other time this is used is to describe Noah. So some kind of significance, you could argue about it because simply you don't have enough information. But that's one of kind of the theories, is that, albeit his life short, it's to reflect the fact that Enoch was in good graces of God. He walked with God. Whereas the rest of these fools, not so much, at least no mention of it, right? So after he fathered, Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Enoch were 365, which, if you notice, is less than a lot of other people. But it's also not the shortest. Enoch walked with God, second time, 24. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. He was no more, for God took him, depending on your translation. So what's being left out is kind of the typical way that this would be written. That's what's being removed or omitted, or whatever word you want to use, in reference to the death of the person. Because if you remember, every other time up here, I read at least 3 of them, but there were more that we skipped, and then he died, and then he died. In the case of Enoch, Enoch walked with God, and he was not, or he was no more, for God took him. So Enoch walked with God is reiterated within 2 verses. Also, the language is entirely different. He was not, meaning he was no more, meaning he died. But it wasn't just, and then he died like everybody else. It was, he was no more, for God took him. Significance has to be. What exactly that is, good luck. But obvious significance. There's a lot of similar language when you get to 2 Kings and you get to Elijah. Just something that when we get there we'll talk about. But it's significant because it's similar. However, it's not super clear that they're significant on their own, if that makes sense. The writing, the way that it's put on paper is significantly similar. But the actual significance of the language is hard to say. The Mesopotamian flood myth says there were survivors. Those are my favorite. Those are my favorite. We've talked about it before, but I would love to go through like some of the old Mesopotamian literature, because I find like their stories of creation, because there's several of them, I find them really interesting. And I find it even more interesting when you start to draw parallels between Christianity, some of the other earlier religions, and like the old Mesopotamian folklore or myths. They're interesting. I like them a lot. Yeah, Ruth, you should definitely read some of them. You should definitely read some of them. They're really good. If you're into this kind of crap, they're really good. All right, so God took Enoch. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived after he fathered Lamech 782 years. Yada, yada, yada. It continues on. Then in 29, we get Noah. And with Noah, he called his name Noah, saying, this is God, out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. This is a reiteration of the curse God gave Adam, which is significant. Noah being a significant person that we don't know yet because we haven't read it. And we're reading this with a totally blank mind because that's the only way to read old stuff like this, if you want to be honest. So we don't know that yet. But we already know right there in 29, he, similar to Enoch, has some kind of significance. We're just not exactly sure what it is. He ends up being the figure of the flood narrative in the next chapter, in 6. This one shall bring us relief, or this one shall relieve us. Noah's name sounds similar to, what is it? Nahem, which means to comfort or to give relief. So Noah's name literally means that. And this is one of those themes that we've already seen a handful of times. And this is one of those interesting things where you can call me crazy and you can say that I'm a heretic or whatever. But a lot of the names that are in the Bible are just words. And they're words that fit very specifically to context, which doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean it's not true, but it's something when you're reading to just keep in mind and try to pinpoint, try to identify, or at the very least, like consider the possibility that some of the names are more significant in context than they are in any other way. Meaning, like, it's a reiteration of who the person is. Which then, if you think about it, that was the case for a lot of people. But I would never say it became like a very normal thing in all cultures. Like, even today, we'll name kids something and be like, oh, her name means wild blooming flower in French. Like, cool. Nobody gives a shit, but cool. Cool. Very pretty. It's very pretty. Back then, 2 tracks. One is that the author is lying, and it's not what their name actually was. But it is what the Hebrew word means for the actual idea that the author is trying to express about the individual. That's track 1. Track 2 is that was their name, and they were named that because of the reflection of the concept or the idea that the individual was then going to live out. It could be either. One of those things, like, doesn't really matter. It's got no theological significance whatsoever. It's got really no significance whatsoever at all, in my opinion, other than adding context or adding clarity to the text. But it doesn't really change anything, in my opinion. And people will definitely disagree. So it's one of those things you got to sort out for yourself and figure out where you land. But we got Noah. Noah's name means to comfort or to give relief, and specifically was talked about being someone to bring them comfort and relief. From specifically, and interestingly, the curse that God gave Adam, which is the painful toiling of the hands. And more specifically was the inability to actually harvest from the painful toiling of your hands. 30, Lamech lived after he fathered Noah 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years after, and then he died, blah, blah, blah. But 777, 7 times 7, 70 times 7. I think we talked about this, right? A couple weeks ago. Maybe it was with Corinthians. I think, or was it in Genesis? I don't remember, honestly. Everything is blurred for me for the past couple weeks. But I know we talked about it. I'm like fairly confident. We talked about Jesus talks about the 7 times 7. It was Genesis. Because it was Cain, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but it was after the exile or around the time of the exile. The 7 times 7, 70 times 7. In Genesis, it's talked about. By Jesus, it's talked about. And I want to say Paul mentions it at some point, but I'm not super confident on that, so you'd have to look. Then in Christian culture, this concept of 70 times 7 or 7 times 7 has become really, really, really big, which is based in biblical concepts. Like it's a part of the context. But I've always found it kind of interesting, if not a little bit. It's interesting. It's interesting that this whole section ends with somebody who lives 777 years. Maybe a coincidence, maybe not. Maybe the numerology people are totally losing their shit right now, being like, oh, it's so significant because of this, or this. I don't know. But it's interesting, if nothing else, that this 7 times 7, 70 times 7, 777, the 777, you can find a million different people telling you a million different things of what it means from a numerological standpoint. If nothing else, it's interesting. Ghost probably knows more about that stuff than me. So if you do, Ghost, you can throw it out there. I'm not so much the numerology guy. Cain was worried he'd be hunted by mystery people we don't know about. So God said he'd be protected from them. Yeah, and their punishment would be 7 times 7. And then the guy who I can't remember what his name was, I want to say it was Lamech, but I don't remember. But then he came out all cocky and was like, well, if this was Cain's punishment, then my punishment will be this. And I believe that's when it multiplied. I'm like 80% sure. That's when it multiplied and it progressed past the 7 times 7. But then it's significant, if for no other reason, that Jesus talks about it later. So if nothing else, Jesus found that concept or that math equation or whatever to be significant for some reason. But it's also possible that it's just a good story. Jesus did everything by story. Everything was an illustration. Not everything, but a lot of stuff was an illustration. So maybe he's just using it to illustrate and drawing on the Old Testament, drawing on the scriptures for it. I don't know. But then again, you'll get those people who are like, there is massive significance to this number 7 alone, and to the 7 times 7, and to the 777, the 777. There are people who are very, very serious about it. Okay, you don't know. Got it. Yeah, I don't either. I've heard too much. It became something that just started going in and out, straight in my ear and then out the other. After Noah was 500 years old, Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Let's see, what time is it? All right, we'll burn through 6. We'll burn through 6. So we'll do 5 and 6, because this is when we get into the Nephilim and some of the actual fun stuff in Genesis. If killing your brother isn't fun. Increasing corruption on earth is the title that the ESV gives this. I do want to read this, though. The Hebrew word used here... no, that's the wrong note. Sorry. All right, so... there we go. When man began to multiply, Shania Twain on the boombox, on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them. Important daughters. The daughters become a focal point. So daughters were born. The sons of God saw that the daughters of man were quite attractive. We've talked about this a lot, but it's been a while. So in the period, the birth of the boys, the men, they were emphasized. I think everybody knows this. They were usually who is listed in a lineage list. It would be the men. Oftentimes, if not most of the time, women were just ignored. They weren't on the list, but not always. Here, we get reference to the daughters, which is, it's significant. It's call it progressive for the Old Testament standards. This is when that starts to shift. However, after this, for the most part, it goes back to only men being mentioned, but it doesn't stay like that forever. But that was just the norm. Everybody knows this. That's just the way it was, like it or hate it. Doesn't really matter. It's the way that it was. This, though, is something that should stand out. The daughters being mentioned, you could call it significant. However, when we read the rest of it, we'll kind of see why. So maybe that is the only reason that they were mentioned. It's, your interpretation, get where you get with it. "70 times 7 could be an ancient Hebrew idiom that is completely lost on us modern folk." 100% possible. Yeah. I think it's actually very likely that that's all that it is. Because that to me would make a lot of sense with why Jesus mentioned it at all. Because that would be like a Jesus thing to do. I feel like if it held massive significance, Jesus would have added to it or would have expanded on it. But that's definitely not always true either. Genesis 6 is a summary response to tons of compelling literature of the time. That's why it's so short. The author assumed his readers would know Mesopotamian stories. That's why none of it was mentioned. I actually 100% agree with that. I hope everybody else got that. I'm going to read it again. Because I agree with this, but this is Ghost and I's opinion. So take it or leave it. But I'm 100% in agreement. Genesis 6, Ghost said, is a summary response to tons of compelling literature of the time. That's why it's so short. The author assumed his readers would know the Mesopotamian stories, and that's why none of it was mentioned in greater detail. I 100% agree. And we'll talk about why here in a second. Let me get a little bit more into it so we have more context. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. One thing to note, one thing to think about. Does the author mean took them as wives? Or does the author mean took them physically? It's something to think about. We don't have a lot of context for what marriage is at this time. Because again, you are a blank slate. All you know is Genesis 1 through 5. That's it. You are ignorant otherwise. As an ignorant person who knows nothing, what is the author trying to convey by using the term wives? Because it is an accurate, it's an accurate translation. Wives. Is it literal, a union? Because at this time, presumably, there was no ceremony. At least we are unaware of it. There could have been, there could not have been, or were they trying to express something else, and it was a poor choice of words? Something to think about. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever. My spirit. In Hebrew, this is the breath. I think we talked about this before. It's probably talking about the human life, which in this context, spiritually and otherwise, would be, in Hebrew, would be the breath. The breath is the spirit, is the human life. It's definitely some argument there, but compelling literature. That's what you said, wasn't it? Oh, competing literature. No, you said it right. Or am I overreading something? Either way, I think we got it. I think you're totally right. I think that's exactly what this is. So the spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His day shall be 120 years. This is not clear what is actually being talked about. It could be the general reference to the shortening of the human life, which would make sense. And as you go on in the Old Testament, it would add up. We had very long lifespans earlier in Genesis, and those lifespans seem to get shorter as time goes on in the Old Testament. So it could very possibly just mean that. He is also flesh, or for he is flesh. It's not, how do you say this? It's a distinction of the separation between creator and creation, I guess would be like the simplest way to say it. God is saying that he is different, that man is special, but that he is flesh. There's a distinct difference. And because he is flesh, because man is flesh, there is an expiration, I guess would be the way to say it. There is a finite limit to that part of reality, and that will be shortened, is what is probably being expressed. The Nephilim, it occurs twice. I believe here, and Numbers is the other one. Maybe Ghost knows. I'm pretty sure here, and I'm pretty sure Numbers is the only place that the word Nephilim exists. I want to say, if I'm right about that, any other time you see it in a Bible, I believe it's added. I'm like 90% sure that it's only twice, and I'm like 90% sure that it's here and that it's in Numbers somewhere, like the first 10 or 15 chapters in Numbers. That's it. And if I remember correctly, I didn't make sure before this, so check me if I'm wrong. If I remember correctly, any other times you see it, it's added, it happens. Those exist. So there are some editions of the Bible, I believe much earlier ones that people don't really read, but I believe that they added more about the Nephilim, and it was a part of why it became problematic. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. Graphic. Come on. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually, perpetually. First John reiterates this when he says that people who participate in evil perpetually are of the devil. That's a section in the New Testament. Is that people who perpetually practice sin, which is just immorality, are of the devil. He's drawing from Genesis 6. And the Lord regretted that he made man on the earth. Anthropomorphism. And it grieved him to his heart. Anthropomorphism. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things, and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. What's interesting about this is, like, people sucked. People did shitty things. So God kills all the animals? That's what it sounds like, but we know that's not what he does. He saves the animals. So it's interesting, because that's not what's being said right here. And animals, and creeping things, and birds of the heaven. He regretted making them, and he will blot them out. Which, in a sense, he does. But why what did the animals do wrong? Why are the animals being wiped out? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's one of these things that it doesn't add up to me. People acted immorally, and so he's killing everything? Huh. To me, it's interesting. I listen 70 times 7 mean perfect action. What do you mean by that? Goes to the churches I ever went to said Cain must have married one of his relatives, like a sister. I never bought that story. A lot of people believe it. They just don't want to talk about it. I'd say that's what most Christians believe, even if they don't think they do. If you sat them down and started asking questions and you dialed them back to that question, I bet they would be like, oh yeah, I guess. But they don't understand why. They just understand the things they believe to that point. And so that answer becomes the default, which is how people are, which makes me want to do horrible things, bash my head against the wall, because they don't think about it. They're just floating through life. I think Cain married an NPC, but we can't know for sure. I don't necessarily disagree. I'm telling you, the NPC conversation, in terms of the origin of people, is actually a really interesting conversation. Ruth said, of course, this is where time travel would be fun. The days of plague must have sucked. Numbers 13:33. Is that the other time the Nephilim? I assume. Yeah. So confirmed by Ghost. It's Genesis 6, and then it's Numbers 13. He says 33 is the verse. Any other time, if it's in the Bible, personally, I would throw the Bible away. With respect, but I would throw the Bible away. Because something was added. All right, so Noah has favor in the eyes of the Lord. So with everything going on, wiping out humanity, wiping out the animals for whatever reason, kind of unjustly, in my opinion, but wiping out everything except for just enough to repopulate, Noah found favor, so Noah will be spared. Noah and fam. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Sounds familiar, huh? Enoch walked with God. Significant. Try to figure out why. That's the question, is what is the actual significance of it? But it is significant to some degree. It has to be. Noah survives the great flood. Noah is now the creator of the human race from henceforth, along with the wife, the sons, and their wives. A lot of people will say the sons' wives were their sisters. Don't know how you feel about that. It is generally accepted, though. People just don't like to talk about it, but it's generally accepted. He was blameless. This is an accurate description. He was without defect, is another way that it gets translated. And it's the obvious expression of Noah was following the principles laid out. It's not a complex thing. What is interesting is that this terminology in Hebrew, this is what is also used in animal sacrifice. So Noah is being talked about the same way that animals who are then sacrificed due to their unblemished nature are talked about later, I guess I should say. Interesting. It's just an interesting thing, is that the description is the same. Not always, is that done like that. Not often is that done that way. More often, humans are expressed in a different way. Their blameless nature is expressed in a different way, oftentimes using different terms. Here, it's the exact terms that you'll later see in the context of animal sacrifice. It's just an interesting thing. Noah walked with God. Again, it's a reiteration of what was talked about with Enoch. These two men have some kind of significance. Noah, we know the significance. Enoch, it's not so clear. So there are theories. Noah's is relatively clear. What I want to know is why the similarity. If there is significance to the similarity, don't know. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence, and God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For I love how the Bible just expresses things sometimes. It was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, yeah, that was corrupt in God's sight. And the earth was filled with violence, and God saw the earth corrupt. For all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. So the ark, it is the same word, teva. It is the same word in Exodus with the basket, with Moses. So it's the same term. When you picture them, very different things. The basket that Moses was set off down the river in is like a little baby basket. It's like a picnic basket. At least I assume it was like a picnic basket, and he was not put on some massive freaking ark. It's the same word though. So it would be like calling both of them a boat today, which maybe you would. I don't know. But back then, same thing. Just stupid thing that is just true. Made of gopher wood, put rooms in the ark, blah, 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 so all the people can sleep. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits. Its breadth, 50 cubits, and its height, 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark, and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. So we're talking triple-decker ark. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Interesting verbiage. I don't have a lot for you. I just think it's interesting verbiage. Destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Maybe it means nothing. But I think it's interesting within the greater context of how everything else is being written and expressed. To me, it stands out, but maybe I'm being just totally biased, and maybe it's just me. Everything that is on the earth shall die, but I will establish my covenant with you. You shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing, of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to help them alive with you, to help keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds according to their kind, of the animals according to their kind, and every creeping thing on the ground according to its kind. 2 of every sort shall come in to you to keep them alive. Also take with you every sort of food that is eaten, and store it up. It shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. So, Genesis 6, Ghost said, is a summary response to tons of compelling literature of the time. That's why it's so short. It's super short. Considering what is happening and considering how much page space authors in the Old Testament give to other stories that I would argue are not as significant as completely freaking wiping out all of reality or all of humanity and animals and basically the earth so that everything resets. It's kind of like one of the most significant things that happens in the Bible is the flood. It's also a very short story. even moving past 6, it's a short story. I agree with Ghost because I believe that the author understood the readers to understand what was happening. Because this story and other parts of the early Old Testament, it's very similarly reflected in Mesopotamian and some other literature, but Mesopotamian would be like the foundation. Very similar stuff. So with the understanding of the Mesopotamian literature, the readers would grasp what is happening here and not really need a whole lot more information. As people today, or even, hell, even a lot of people like early on, like New Testament and after the New Testament time, would not have as great of an understanding. They would definitely have more than us, but they would have much less than the original intended audience of the text, which is not you, baby girl, and it's not me. It was not even close to us, intent-wise. So to us, it makes no damn sense. To them, it does. Then when you factor in my opinion as a heretic, when you factor in the fact that I don't believe we have a complete Bible, I don't believe we have the entire Old Testament the way that it was. I don't believe that, personally. Same with the New Testament, but Old Testament. I think there are things that are missing. I think some are intentional. I think some were probably not. Some things were probably lost. Some things were probably just genuinely not transferred verbally first. Who the hell knows? All I know is it doesn't seem complete, and then we have absolute proof, in my opinion, of the New Testament that it's not complete. All of that, you're kind of left wondering. Then you get into actually reading Enoch, and things get a little bit, I guess, worse would be the word, in terms of like feeling confident and like you really grasp what is going on and what happened. It becomes even more wavy. And then when you get into the Apocrypha, it begins to get even more wavy. And then you get to a place where you're like, what the hell is going on? But from a general sense, you have a much broader understanding of the time, which I think is important, which is why I think like Enoch is something that's really good to read, albeit hard to read for a lot of people. It's difficult. It's a difficult text to like stay tuned into. Same with the Apocrypha. I think everybody should read the Apocrypha in its entirety because I think it adds context, even if you don't accept any of it as canon. It's good context. It's good additional context to at least understanding like the perspective and what was important during the time and what the author would think and what the readers would think and how they would perceive and intake the information. I think it's all really important. But I would go read some Mesopotamian literature. And then after you do that, I think Genesis, this section of Genesis, and more of Genesis, will make more sense. You'll be like, oh, these dots connect. I understand. So if everybody who is going to read this, which wasn't us, understood all of the Mesopotamian myths, the flood would make more sense. And so would other things. It would just click more. Wouldn't walking with God just mean doing God's will? Right. That's what I think. What's interesting is that it's not common in the Old Testament. It's super common in the New Testament, and you'll still find it throughout the Old Testament. But it's the way that the author portrays it that is just odd to me. It's odd. But it very well could just be that these people were godly people, which I believe I said with Enoch, and with Noah, actually, that these men, they were just living by the principles that we knew to be true. All of those men prior to Enoch in 5 were mentioned and then died, and mentioned and then died. And then all of a sudden Enoch was somebody who walked with God. It very well could just be that these people were close to God, that they were adhering to God's will. It's just interesting comparatively, but it could also mean absolutely nothing at all. It's just different. It's different than a lot of the other times that people are talked about being in alignment with God. It's just different. I don't know how else to say it, I guess. It's just a little bit different than kind of the norm. A Teba could be a woman's womb. Huh. Fair point. Is that where is Teba used? Did I say something about that? I don't think so. Transporting something important. Oh. Never mind. Yes, I gotcha. Yeah, so I'm stupid because I should have caught that. So it's here. I'll put it in the chat. The spelling that I have, unless I have it wrong in my notes, but I'm pretty sure Teba. I should have caught that. So that's totally my bad. I like that though. That's interesting. Yeah. Could also be a woman's womb. It's accurate. Totally accurate. Okay, it's almost 7. Thursday, I should be good for everything like normal. So I think we're in what, 2 Corinthians? I'm pulling all of Genesis to the new YouTube channel. I'm probably not gonna pull anything else. I just didn't want to start at like 5 because that didn't make sense to me. But I'm not gonna pull anything else. It'll just be from here forward. And this will be it. So I'm gonna update. I already did like the notifications on Discord to have the proper stuff because I think all of it's still going to the other one for now. But the YouTube sent me a very clear email out of nowhere saying that I was done. So this will be the place for now, and we'll see how it goes. You know, hopefully the algorithm resets, and I don't know. I'm very pessimistic about YouTube at this point, to be completely honest. But we'll see what happens. Hey, y'all, finally checked Discord and realized there's a new YouTube. Yeah, I got booted off of, in a sense, I got booted off of the other one now. So this is the new one. I'm replacing everything on Discord, so I'm sorry. But the notification, the ping cord thing, I updated. So now there should be one for the new one. And I updated the links and the events thing. And if you guys see anywhere else that I missed that has the other channel, will you please let me know so I can replace it? Because that's obviously going to be confusing. Nothing else will change. I'm not going to like confuse everything, but just all the links just to go somewhere else. Yeah, you know, I did find it kind of ironic that after the last time we had some kids in the chat that were being a little bit unruly, and then all of a sudden I get demonetized out of nowhere because I don't even post videos anymore. I found it a little bit interesting. But yeah, YouTube just sucks. Very much accurate. So if I'm going to try this, because I had talked to Ghost about this a couple months ago, that I wanted to give this a shot and see if like having a fresh channel that wasn't dormant for 5 years, because I was like very active and then not active at all and then active again. I just want to see. And I'm going to try to play the algorithm game with pretty much only live videos and just see what happens. And if we can get some more people, cool. And if it, you know, if I get freaking demonetized again, then I'll probably go to Rumble or go to X or something. I don't know. Or we'll just do it in Discord. I don't know. I don't know, y'all. But yeah, it was interesting that after there were a couple little assholes in here, all of a sudden out of nowhere with no new content whatsoever other than Bible studies, they decided to shut me down. I agree. I think X is the way to go. X is harder to track. X is better in every other way. Rumble is very unreliable. They have a lot of work to do, in my opinion. I love what they're doing. I think it's really great, but they're not stable in any way whatsoever. The servers go down in terms of streaming platforms, like relatively often. X, I have not heard of going down. So it would probably like stream to X and then maybe have Discord going at the same time in case people don't use Twitter and don't want to use Twitter, which I totally get. I totally get. However, you should, because it's like the only social media that's free, like spiritually free, not like monetarily free. It's the place to be if you want to just get raw information. I think it's good. Can you do live streams on Odysee? Odysee? I don't even know what that is. Is that Odyssey? Am I stupid? Explore a whole universe of videos on... Is that Odyssey? Is that how you spell Odyssey? What the hell is this? There's a cat and Jesus shooting laser beams into a UFO on the front of this website. Ghost, what the hell is this? I don't know. I don't know if you can live stream on this. I've never heard of this before. I'll look into it. I didn't know this existed. Interesting. The comments in the last Sunday's live were turned off as soon as it was posted. That's what makes me think maybe it was one of those lame kids. Oh, I didn't know that. I do know that that video had more views than most of the live streams. Most of the Bible study live streams. I know that. But I didn't see the comments thing. Yeah, I don't know about this Odyssey. I don't know, I feel really stupid right now. Odyssey? 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 I don't know, bro. I can't see, I don't see any live videos though. So I'm not sure if you can. It looks like maybe just recorded. There's no like live section or anything. So it would probably be X. And then I'd probably just run it in Discord too. Like, why not? Everybody's already comfortable with Discord. Discord runs in the background on your phone. The only thing that's problematic is like there are people who watch stuff on their TV. Like Rodriguez watches on her TV. I don't know if anybody else does with us. So I don't really think it would affect us, but we shall see. We shall see. We'll see what happens. Hopefully the YouTube thing just works out. And, you know, the new thing is fresh and it, whatever, runs clean. And all I'm going to put on this is Bible studies. That's it. So if I get demonetized doing Bible study, then there is no hope for me. There is no hope for us. So we will have to go somewhere else. But I can't imagine. I had some edgy stuff on the other one. In terms of YouTube, there was some edgy stuff. But we hadn't had anything edgy in like months. Months. So, I don't know. I don't really care. It wasn't... There was not much coming from that thing anyways. It's just annoying to have to move stuff. That's the only annoying thing. But hopefully it helps. I'm hoping it helps. I'm hoping the algorithm pushes it. I'm hoping, since it's all one topic, it's just Bible study. I'm hoping it hits keys better. The reason I named it Live Bible Study is that once there's some traction, if somebody searches for a live Bible study, we'll probably pull up first in the results once it has channel history. We'll just see. It's all a game of, you know, let's see what happens. But YouTube sucks. All right, y'all. I'm gonna run, but Thursday will be like normal. We'll do 2 Corinthians, and then everything will be back to normal for now. Sunday and Thursday until another holiday comes. And if you notice anything in Discord, like links to the wrong thing or notifications to the wrong thing, just please let me know so I can fix it. So it is a seamless transition from here forward. It almost seemed intentional. Yeah. That's for sure why I think they got pissy and reported right when we were live. Yeah. I just wonder where they came from. That's what is curious to me. Is that like 3 people who were unruly came out of nowhere at the same time. I'm just curious. Like I could not possibly care less, but I'm curious where they came from. Did they watch the King James video, get all pissed off, and then see that I was live? Like couple homies sitting in their mom's bedroom? Or I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm very curious. I wish I knew the answer. I wish I knew where they came from. But it's a question we'll never get answered. It's we're like randos from TikTok. Yeah, that's a good point actually, because there were some people on TikTok that left. They disappeared off TikTok, and then some people came in. I don't know. Who knows, man? Who knows? Who knows? It was entertaining though. Like it was a nice little break from the monotony, I suppose. I had a good time for like 3 minutes, and then it became a little bit annoying. But it was funny. You gotta have a little bit of excitement. A couple of kids losing their shit, being real cranky. It's fun. Subversive, subverting. You are super late. We're done. We are done. But it's good to see you. It is good to see you, though. If you need to be caught up, you're going to have to read 5 and 6 on your own. And then you'll be good for next Sunday. And then I guess Thursday, I'll check real quick because I don't remember where we're at. And then I'm going to roll because I got to get ready for Kat to bring home a boa constrictor. Because she is a terrible wife and decides to bring home wild animals every day. Thursday is 2 Corinthians 6. Yeah, 2 Corinthians 6 will be Thursday. Bye. All right, y'all. I love you guys. It was good to see you. Hopefully we'll be back to normal. Just, if you had notifications on the Tattoo Theist page, turn them off. And then maybe turn them on for the new one. I think that would be the only other thing that kind of messes people up. The Reptile Sanctuary, bro. Yeah, this time this one's coming in my office. So maybe I'll bring the boa on Thursday. It's freaking gorgeous. So it could be worse. It could be worse, man. I love my life. I love you guys. Everybody have a great night. See you Thursday.